Hello, my little pink blamongers, and welcome to the News and Views with the award-winning EV Café. 30 minutes of what's happening in net zero transport with expert analysis from the EV Café crew. Brought to you this week in partnership with the AA. Always ahead. Today's opinions on a stick are Paul Kirby, Sam Clark in the house, honk honk, and we've got the wonderful Sarah Sloman. How are you all, dears?
Very good, thank you. I am in London in a hotel room that's so small, I am sat on the bed cross-legged because there's nowhere else to move in this room. It's very nice.
You can do your teeth without moving.
Yeah.
Sam, you're at home?
I am at home, yes. Yeah, which is a luxury, so it's nice not to be on the road today.
And sporting your Huel t-shirt. Other foodstuffs are available for those who can cook. And
yeah, like real food. Eat something real would be good.
Yeah, if I had the time.
I'm in Kirby Towers. Yes, Kirby Towers. Safely ensconced in my office, madly editing away for a wonderful experience this week, which will all become apparent.
Oh, coming to a LinkedIn page near you soon, I should imagine.
You got it.
Right. Okay, coming up, grab a cuppa. Plug in and we'll find out what's coming up. Now, the UK is set to reach 1 million electric vehicle milestone very shortly. EV manufacturer Fisker sadly files for bankruptcy. Sainsbury's introduced Nectar points to reward customers for EV charging. The transport and energy sector spokespeople respond to the Labour manifesto. And Monta and Electricity Maps team up on greener energy. But first, is anybody eating there? Can I hear forks and spoons and things, or is it just in my head? Must just be.
Teaspoon, Sarah.
Sorry, it was me.
Okay, but first, new PodPoint Solar 3S chargers are running Pionix Basecamp installed at customers' homes. Basecamp's an open source back office software and supported by a huge community of developers and users. And we spoke to the founder of Pionix, Marco Muller, Paul, didn't we, on a recent podcast? He was just superb, well worth a listen. What did you take away from that? Because this kind of open source back office data is brilliant.
Yeah. I really loved it. I loved the sort of energy that it can bring to bear to solve a problem by sort of just reaching out to a network of hundreds of engineers in software world and doing something in 5 days that might take 5 months, with one person tapping away. And I love that actually, because this adding to PodPoint will mean PodPoint is perhaps now in the big wide world for the communication thing, because they were very closed in the way that they've run their back office up until now. So I think the partnership there is great. And Marco was brilliant. He made clever stuff easy enough for me to understand. Really simple.
So if you want to hear that podcast, search EV Cafe Takeaway on all good podcast platforms and look for Marco Muller. He is absolutely superb. Also worth a mention.
Sazzy wants to say something.
Oh, you've got to let me.
Sarah.
If you do listen to that podcast, it is Marco himself is an absolute shining star, of course. But I liked the bit when we asked him what did he want to be when he was younger, and he said he wanted to be like the mad professor from DuckTales. And I was driving along. This guy is such a genius, and yes, it's a wonderful listen. Please do go ahead. I've listened to it twice.
Bless you, Sarah. Also worth a mention in dispatches for former Energy Minister Chris Skidmore, as he accused the Prime Minister of breaking the consensus of the past on climate action to seek division and polarisation, suggesting it was the greatest tragedy of his premiership. And he goes on, worse still has been the rhetoric and extreme tone that has sought to politicise net zero as being forced upon people. A false narrative that is either the product of ignorance or deliberate misinformation. Well done, Chris Skidmore. That tells you all you need to know about the Tory party and the work that we try to do to make the world a slightly better, cleaner place. Shall we do the news?
Do it.
Let's do it.
Battery electric vehicle production in the UK is expected to top 1 million between 2030 and 2035. A report has claimed the news from the latest demand report from the Advanced Propulsion Centre in the UK means a demand for more than 100 gigawatt hours of automotive batteries would be required. This offers the UK supply chain opportunity for growth, it said. The report also outlines the next steps needed for the industry to maintain the growth trend, including for the UK automotive industry to continue to grow. New models or new OEMs need to be attracted to the UK rather than the nonsense we heard last week about tariffs and keeping people out. Value in today's liquid electrolyte is relatively low, but semi-solid or solid-state electrolytes are a key investment consideration. And separators that provide a barrier between the anode, the negative, and the cathode, positive, in a battery, whilst enabling the exchange of lithium ions from one side to the other, are relatively low value and quick to establish production. However, capacity in Europe is low and looks likely to remain low. These are significant opportunities to localize in the UK. Sam, we often hear people saying that going to EV, being more sustainable, is expensive and doesn't offer us opportunities. Let's go and grant a few more oil field licenses. It's just not true. There is economic growth in sustainability.
There is, and there's huge demand as well. Let's be clear. I mean, the interesting number there was 100 gigawatt hours of demand, which just happens to be how much energy GridServe has given to the network over the last 4 or 5 years in totality. So just, those numbers are rather poetically line up, but that's like you or I traveling to the sun and back again twice, just to put that number into perspective in what 100 gigawatt hours of something would do for you. So yeah, there's clear demand for it. So we need to be able to produce this energy, do it cleanly, not through oil fields, because there is a demand for it. So let's just keep making renewable energy and supplying vehicles through that mechanism. It's the only way forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Paul, in the commercial vehicle space, are you seeing that opportunity still for commercial fleets to find ways of making the numbers stack up and go more sustainable across the piece in their operations?
Well, first of all, we're seeing many of the OEMs move to renewably powered factories, putting energy on the roof and solar turbines. I was this week at a site which there's a press release coming, so I won't go into too much detail. But a huge turbine connected to the power, and enabling potentially big trucks with big batteries to charge very quickly on thoroughly renewable energy. A single turbine creating as much energy as the UK's first wind farm. Which was 10 turbines back in the day. So something quite fabulous. And people are coming up with solutions to the challenge of the grid and making energy available in a renewable sense to do all of this stuff. So it's great news.
Sarah, you and I have both worked in government, me central, you local. What attracts people to this country to undertake this kind of manufacturing activity?
I do hope that is the case, because often it's reported that it isn't, and this is evidence that it could well be. I'm a big fan of wind turbine. I'm a big fan of looking to other countries and seeing what we can learn from them. And yesterday was an absolute pleasure to listen to Utrecht in the Netherlands talk about how they've got the world's first bidirectional charging city, and they've planned that for quite some time, 7 years in total. So what their intention was always was modelling that energy demand. They've got 3-phase supply. We don't. They do as standard. So they have that opportunity. They also have 36% of rooftops covered in PV solar, which makes them the world leaders in solar. Way more than Australia, way more than any other country that you can offer them. This has actually caused congestion on their grid, though. So now the pressure is on the OEMs to produce those bidirectional capable batteries in vehicles. Otherwise, the plan fails.
Absolutely.
Netherlands are super exciting, aren't they? Sorry, Sam, go for it.
That's right. No, I was just going to say what I like about this news thread is that what we're talking about is development of stuff that's been around forever, right? So a wind turbine 10 years ago is just a better turbine today. We've got battery storage everywhere, we've got solar everywhere. This is good news, but it's also not new news, because we've been doing this stuff for years and years and years. But if we're refining it and turning it into more scalable opportunities, then that's very, very encouraging, because then it's not new news, is it? This stuff's been around for ages. It's just now we're starting to really get into the world of developing it on a mass scale, and that's exciting.
I think that it is exciting. You're absolutely right. And I think the importance of continuing to raise it is that the majority of people just don't understand what is going on in the background and believe the myth that the grid will break. We'll all fail. There's no chance of being able to move to energy. We can't get energy quickly into one place to another. All of those things, or there's I'm signing up for a green tariff, but where's my energy really coming from? And all of that good stuff. We are busting those kind of stupid ideas and giving people a real understanding of real things happening today that are moving the needle forward. It's exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. Now then, it's not all roses round the door in the EV world, however. The electric vehicle manufacturer Fisker has filed for bankruptcy in the US after failing to secure investment. This has been on the cards for some time. Reuters reports that it's looking to sell its assets and restructure its debt after succumbing to rapid cash burn to deliver its Ocean SUV in the US and Europe. The company, founded by automotive designer Henrik Fisker, had flagged doubts about its ability to remain in business in February, and a month later, its attempts to secure an investment from what was believed to be Nissan failed, forcing it to rein in operations. Like other companies in the electric vehicle industry, we have faced various market and macroeconomic headwinds that have impacted our ability to operate efficiently, Fisker said in a statement this week. Now then, is it a them problem, Sarah? Or is it indicative of a wider challenge for entrance into the EV space? These same market conditions don't seem to be preventing the Chinese from market startup, penetration, and exponential growth. Do you think Fisker is unusual, or are the Chinese different?
I think their sort of operational inefficiencies, as they report there in the article. This is why I so love the news, because, as you know, I don't read the script before time. And I was reporting on some figures last week and I couldn't dial in because of the train, which is that one in 9 vehicles in the US are due to be electric now, 1 in 5 for us and 1 in 3 in China. And then the US and the UK will level, and Europe, apologies, US, UK and Europe will level at 1 in 5 and see China continue to be 1 in 3. So it does make me wonder if they've been planning this for a long time, and that huge sort of quite literal ships full of vehicles going around the world to join us may have had something. The entrant to market piece is so interesting. Speaking to Jonathan Jenkins from Motability Operations, where they launched yesterday and the day before at Move, their new adapted vehicle, which is very impressive, and I just hope is going to be successful because it has all of the component features for that demographic that needs a vehicle like that. So a very unique use case. So is it where we've got something niche versus something mainstream? If you've got mainstream, there's a lot more choice, a lot more pressure, and a lot more voting with your feet.
Sam, there's this danger always that we end up with just the same old OEMs doing the same old thing, and they might have some plans to go to EV, some quick, some less so. You've been in this startup position. It's brutal, isn't it, to get through startup into growth and then market penetration. Keeping at it is important.
It is. I've done many a startup, John, but not in this field. And this is an incredibly challenging one, right? And it will always be so. It's the long-established OEMs. Tesla is a freak. It's a freak of nature. It nearly went bust many times, but has managed to secure itself as a market leader. But that doesn't mean that it's an easy thing to do. And I fear for all of these smaller OEMs that are just constantly on, look at the share price of all of the ones that are still just about hanging on, 98, 97% loss in share price value over the last few years. It's very, very tough. And I fail to see outside of China how you can make a business case for these smaller OEMs. It's sad, but it's just the reality, and it's evidenced. It's not a one-off, right? We've seen 6 or 7 in the last 6 or 7 years. There's a pattern, and I don't see how anyone's going to break that cycle.
And Paul, you have this week, I think you were with Carla Detrue from Volta, and they are Phoenix coming from ashes. Some file for bankruptcy, go into administration, find additional funding, and come back. Is this a pattern that we'll see more and more?
I don't know if it's a pattern. It's not a pretty pattern at the end of the day, for the suppliers that lost out, people that lost their jobs and all that kind of stuff. So it's not something that we really want to see again and again, but certainly great to see brilliant tech coming back. And I think where the tech shines through, there's half a chance. But I really do want to address this, the Chinese thing. This is not clever manufacturers producing great kit. I mean, some of the stuff that's coming out of China, it's serving a purpose, but the stuff that is on the market here in the UK, say from Maxus, is good stuff and it's doing a job. But there's a lot of other manufacturers that are producing very basic vehicles, heavily funded. So there's, I think, 9 or 10 of the 14 major OEMs in China are fully state-owned. So there's only 4 that are for profit or in the capitalist sense. And, you know, it is a really dramatic difference. And I can understand why governments are sort of thinking about tariffs. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I can understand why. Because the Chinese government is directly funding and benefiting from it. And it also speaks to us as European or Western OEMs to say, well, why isn't government funding some of the new tech that is getting started? And we are seeing that in some cases. America are very keen to put money into their businesses. And Fisker aside, but what you see there is a company that produced a lot of vehicles but didn't have homes for them. And it's around about how do you go to market? Do you just produce vehicles that you have orders for, like Rivian did with Amazon, who are still struggling, but they are continuing, and we can hope for the future for those guys. So I think it's all about the model and the strategy and the execution, and a hell of a lot of money behind you, of course. But I do believe government has a part to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay, thank you for that. Shall we do it? Shall we do it?
Oh, is it the hello?
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Come on.
Time for the hello.
To name checks now, unless anybody can have a steward's inquiry. Scott Eady at 9:30.
Oh my God.
Hand. What have you been doing with those raspberries, Mr. Scott Eady? Gary Comerford at EV Musings was second in through the door at 9:32, and the pair of them had a little chat for a while, which was very lovely to see. Then Paul joined in, sport the fun. Daryl Sharp, hello, my friend. Kirsty Robinson from Stuart Signs, hello. Ron Godfrey, always good to see you. Tom Middleditch, give me the news, he says. We're doing our best. Mark Main, happy Friday to you too. Ben McDonald, good morning. Sunny day here in London. Not after the football, it wasn't. Mark Elliott, he was late, 10:01. Sort your life out, Mr. Elliott. Dev Chakravarti, 10:02. But I think he was on before that. I went out to check about 9:52, and he was around saying hello. Christian Borman, sunny summer morning. Ashley Bannister, still drinking from your EV Cafe mug, my friend. Rob Dustin, hello. Jim Blair from Arnold Clark. Esther Jones from the aforementioned AA, sponsors of today's news. We love you. You're always ahead. Pam Hanlon from Power. We are going to be using you greatly on the EV rally. Can't wait for that. Starts the 1st of July. Peter Lever. Morning all. Who else we got? Richie Martin, our very own Rocket Man. He's superb. Wayne Dunn, Russ Morgan. Morning EV humans. That's what you think.
I like that.
Yes, indeed.
Not us.
Yeah. Lloyd Allen. Hello, Lloyd. 10:07. Alarm clock fail. Josh Edkins. Josh from Webfleet. Hello, my friend Sarah Gray. Do you know what? You're wonderful. Just wonderful.
Appointed today.
I was about to say.
Sorry, will you say it? You're far better at it.
No, I won't. Vice Chair. I know. Yes. Hasn't she?
Of the
done well?
BVRLA CV committee. Well done. Love it.
Yeah. Commercial vehicles right up your street, Sarah. Well done. Who else we got here? Marvin Samuels, lovely to see. Martin Cairns, good gracious. Stephen Williams. Oh, yes, from Direct Line. Craig Salmon. Summit Fishy there. Oh, no, Salmon. Sammon.
Salmon.
Anyway, Leon Gomez. Leon, thank you for your messages during the week. You have been an absolute superstar, especially with the webinar on Wednesday. Do you know what? I think that'll do for now, because Sam is going to go off his head otherwise. And we've got great news about Sainsbury's. Customers using Sainsbury's ultra rapid electric vehicle charging service, Smart Charge, will be able to collect Nectar points, making it the first EV charging service in the UK to offer a national loyalty scheme. All Smart Charge customers with active Nectar accounts will be able to charge their electric vehicle, collect Nectar points from the end of this month, collecting 1 Nectar point for every £1 spent. It's about time too. I'm sick to the back teeth of petrol promotions, which are of no use to EV drivers, and there is no equivalent for us lot. Well done, Sainsbury's. Now, Sarah, have you got a little something to add here?
Yeah. Okay, number one, again, well done. And they have lowered their prices since they launched Smart Pass as well, so that's cool. Number two, it's an apology. So Paige, you did an amazing article on this, and I was really pleased to see how we can learn from retailers to improve the EV charging experience and what we can do for advertising to offset and create better revenue streams. That's what the article's about. I then got invited onto a podcast with Changemakers, which is hosted by Whatcars, like 17 million subscribers to that. And I started complaining about how I can't get nectar points at Sainsbury's. So by the time that goes live, I'm going to have to eat some humble pie. So let me just start here with my knife and fork. Thank you for making it possible to get nectar points when I buy your electrons rather than my petrol and diesel.
I think there's a slight challenge here from Scott Eady. He says, that's not true, JC. ChargeMaster ran a points-led loyalty scheme. Let's clarify that I think what they're saying is it's the first non-CPO, so relating to a retailer that is providing that loyalty scheme, which can then be redeemed against product and food and yummy things, I think, which Sam could use, because he then wouldn't have to use Huel. Scott goes on, between a great amount of stuff you can swap points for. Correct, my friend. Thank you for the challenge, though. Much appreciated. Do you use Sainsbury's, Sam, or does one of your people go for you?
Depends, John. No, I did have a look at this article as well, and I couldn't help but do a little.
Who are Sainsbury's? Who are they?
Paul, please stop interrupting, for God's sake. Well, he will learn, ladies and gentlemen, sooner or later. Anyway, I did a little bit of maths on this article, and I looked at the image on the Sainsbury's website. And if you use around 30 kilowatt hours, if you're there for an hour or so on one of their chargers, you'll consume about £16 worth of energy. And at on the nectar point basis of half a penny per nectar point is what the true value of a nectar point is. So in reality, and this isn't a criticism, it's just an observation, that if you spend around £16 on your charging, you're going to get 8 pence back as a contribution. Now, that's the same logic as you'd apply to any consumption of any goods within the Sainsbury's portfolio, of course, but it's only a small amount. But it's great that at least to use one of the other supermarkets, every little helps, right? So but if you are wondering what does that really mean in reality, if you're going to have a charging session for an hour, it's probably going to get you about 8 pence back, which doesn't sound like much, but of course, if you do it regularly, I'm sure it'll add up.
And that's only the beginning, of course. You could utilize that points in a sort of loyalty scheme. It could be worth more in store. So there might be an option to trade in those points to get discounts off food in store. So, it's just something. And there's been nothing really of any note so far. So I'm all for it. And don't forget, it was Volkswagen and Tesco's and Pod Point. And we're doing this for a long time. Sainsbury's have just absolutely raised the bar.
And it's just the beginning as well, right? So I think in terms of the beginning of incentivization and dynamic pricing and it's all the different on-peak, off-peak timing we're seeing in the utility market with the Octopus Energy's bills and things like that, or utility providers. So there'll be lots. I think there's going to be lots more creativity around the way in which we pay for things in the charging domain over the next few years. Good.
Indeed. Right. Daryl Sharp says Huel will be loving the name drop here this morning multiple times. We don't do these things by accident, Now then, professionals from the clean transport and energy sectors have given their reaction to Labour's 2024 general election manifesto. A number of policies have been included in the manifesto, including a pledge to reinstate the petrol and diesel ban to 2030. It would also work to support the transition to electric vehicles by accelerating the rollout of new charge points. Snore, snore. We know. Good grief, that's not new. Dr. Nina Skorupska, CBE Chief Exec of the REA, said that she was pleased to see Labour committing to policies to champion the renewable and clean technology sectors. Yeah, we are. Jakob Folder, AA Chief Exec, said it was vital to reintroduce the 2030 zero-emission deadline on vehicles, and that this was accompanied by the acceleration of charging points and investment in new gigafactories. But sadly, Chair of the AFP, Paul Hollick, said more detail was needed, although the key ideas were fine in principle. Paul, not convinced there. And Paul Kirby, what you got on it?
Well, I just people need to be clear on what this ban is. It's the ban on the sale of petrol and diesel only vehicles. So they must be plug-in hybrids. And there is at least, 3 times we say that it's going to be zero emission from 2030. It's not. And there is a fundamental reason why this is important, because it's misinformation that is causing a lot of the fear, a lot of the uncertainty, and a lot of the doubt. So people are thinking everything must be zero emission by 2030, and there is no clarity on the content here. Now, I'm all for it. I want the change. I wished it had not changed because it just continued with the misinformation. But we really must be clear that, you know, people will still be able to have this stepping stone technology up till 2035, but the majority of the vehicles will be electric by that point or zero emission. So I think we just need clarity on it, and we need to kind of keep pushing forward so that we get the right message out, that people thoroughly understand it and are not kind of resisting it because they don't understand it.
Quite right. Steve Williams from Direct Line says, hopefully when they do move back to 2030, so he's already assuming that Labour will get in, they communicate it in a clearer manner so that consumers realise it only impacts new car sales and not all cars. And Marv Samuels says it's the sale of new petrol and diesel only cars. Quite right, Paul. And sadly, these are the messages that we need to continue to bang on about, because whilst we in the bubble understand, there's an awful lot of people out there who are just scratching their heads and saying it doesn't matter, I'll keep driving my petrol vehicle, and they don't get the complexity of or the simplicity in many ways of the things that we're saying. Okay, electric vehicle charging platform Monta and climate tech startup Electricity Maps have joined forces to reduce the carbon impact EV owners have when charging. Data collected over the last 12 months across the Monta Smart Charge app has shown that almost 70,000 smart charge sessions were optimized for cleaner, greener charging. Through the strategic partnership, Monta Smart Charge app users can charge their EVs when energy is at the cheapest, but also, and this is the kicker, but also when the carbon intensity of the electricity is lower and production from sustainable energy sources is higher. Each charge avoided an average of 203 grams of CO2. In comparison, a regular smart charge session that just is price optimized avoids an average of just 37 grams. So it's a 4 point. Yeah, sorry, this is building work in my house. I
I
apologize.
didn't know what was happening. Okay, good news.
It's actually one of my kids trying to get out of the cupboard that I put in.
Those cellars are just not as soundproof as they used to be, are they?
Be quiet down there. Stop it. So it's reducing massively the CO2 impact by not only using price as a variable, but using the electricity carbon density as well, and using sustainable energy sources. It's got to be a great thing, Sam.
It is, yeah. It's more smart technology, isn't it? In play, you know. Again, not necessarily new news because there's a lot of people doing something similar, but it's great that people are just consistently coming up with smart and intelligent ways to mitigate not just price but also carbon intensity of the things that we're consuming. It's really, really good. In fact, Paul and I were at a dinner a few months ago with a national, I think it was National Grid, wasn't it, Paul? The energy smart light in the corner that came on green, that demonstrated when we were consuming less carbon in the industry. So the little light came on just to indicate that. So there's lots of different ways in which people are using this methodology to affect change. So yeah, more's the better.
And it's interesting because it raises a question. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I rock up to a charger, I'm just grateful that it's working and that I can afford it and all that stuff. I rarely stop to think, right, where's the energy coming from? And that's a failing on my part, because we know that the good stuff, the sustainable stuff, usually gets dumped into the national grid and just reduces the numbers a bit, rather than it being pumped straight into the charger, which, you know, has always been that virtuous circle for me of generate the energy locally, store it locally, use it locally. Sarah, do you ever stop and think about where the energy comes from?
Absolutely. I'm one of those people that looks it up before I use that network, and I absolutely am. And that green light bulb thing came out in 2020, and I love the fact that it takes a long time for people to sort of really get to know. I'm all for anything. I've been really proud to see PayThrough start to work with people that produce the bright green kiosk screens, because that's when you can tell drivers the same information. So thank you for choosing our charging network today. Not only do you get these points that you're just about to collect, but do you know that you're using 100% renewable energy right now? And here's the National Grid website to tell us that that's the case, you know, if that was possible in the future. That I would love to see more consumer engagement. I think there's a real swell to be had in that feel-good factor, listening to Octopus and Electroverse and talking about how they engage their customers has been their success, I think, in their rapid growth.
Thank you for that. Thank you, all three of you.
Really quickly, what I love about the site I saw this week is the direct connection between, like, visibly And it's such a visual message to say the times they are changing and we're getting the energy from the cleanest possible sources. And dynamic pricing, dynamic tariffs that, when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, the energy is being created and we can use it. And actually it's beneficial for everybody to come and charge at those moments. So that dynamic tariffing or dynamic charging is going to come into the EV space very, very soon, I think. If it's already here.
Right, I've got to go. My child is trying to drill out a Tesla. Listen, if you've got any clean transport, PR, or news stories you'd like us to cover, send them to us at hello@evcafe.org. Until next Friday, it's goodbye from me, it's goodbye from them. This has been EV Cafe Reflection, brought to you this week in partnership with the AA. Always ahead. Other sustainability news is available, but this one is just fun. The EV Cafe is truly blessed to be partnered with the AA, Webfleet, Europe Car, Paythrough, Iveco, Zaptec, Drax, Sperry, Stuart Science, Hydrock, Allstar, Schneider Electric, and Dynamon. We're the EV Cafe, supporting the transition to zero-emission transport. I'm going to kill the driller. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend, wherever it takes you. Until next Friday, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
The drilling is so funny. I just
Oh,
love it.
my
It's really
Lord.
funny.